Mrs. Moulter. Watkins Road in Horseheads for 9 years, but I recently moved. A few years ago, I went to a meeting of the Chemung County Legislature, at which the Public Works Department head, Vince Spagnoletti, was presenting a possible program of accepting drill cuttings into the Chemung County landfill. When the meeting was over, I went over to the DEC representative who was there. He was there as a resource person to answer questions. I said, "Sir, how can the DEC allow drill cuttings from the Marcellus Shale to be put into landfills when it contains radioactive materials and heavy metals?" And his answer stunned me. He said, "Because there's no law against it." He didn't say because it's safe. He didn't say that because testing for gamma radiation is sufficient and it's okay to ignore the alpha radiation. He didn't say that they were doing testing of the leachate for heavy metals, and I'm talking about things like arsenic, barium, cadmium, chromium, lead, mercury. Those are a few of them. He didn't say that the levels of them were low enough that it was safe. He just said there's no law against it. Well, if putting drill cuttings from the Marcellus Shale into landfills is as dangerous as many of us in the room think it is because there's documented evidence of the danger, why don't we have laws to prevent it? And the answer is in one word: exemptions. The oil and gas industry is exempt from numerous laws, and I'll just mention a few. At the federal level, NEPA, the National Environmental Protection Act of 1969, the Clean Water Act of 1972, the Safe Drinking Water Act of 1974, and the Clean Air Act of 1990, and there's several others. Those are the law of the land. But later, every one of those, action was taken to exempt the oil and gas industry from every one of those later. Now folks, if I were to start an organic farm, I would have to obey the law of the land, federal and state. But the oil and gas industry is exempt from the things I just listed. This is un-American. To have one set of rules for some people and another set of rules for another is not democracy. Let me get to the state level. We've had a bill in the New York State Legislature for the last 2 legislative sessions. That's about 3 or 4 years. This bill, and I have a handout, I've already given a handout to the audience, and I have a handout for the legislators with a bill number and all that. If this bill were passed and became law, the hazardous waste would be labeled hazardous, and it would be treated and transported, stored, and treated as hazardous waste. And we have rules in New York State that take care of that. But instead, it's labeled industrial. And this is actually an interpretation by the DEC that allows the radioactive and heavy metal laden waste to be called industrial, or just C&D, construction and demolition. If this bill were passed and became law, and that waste were labeled hazardous because it is, they couldn't put drill cuttings from the Marcellus Shale in the Chemung County landfill or anybody else's landfill. And they couldn't use waste from the drilling and fracking to de-ice our roads in the winter. And they wouldn't be able to use that waste to cut the dust down in the summer, because all of that would not be allowed because it's hazardous. So on the handout, there's information on the bill, And our state senator, Tom O'Mara, sits on the Energy Conservation Committee in which this bill sits and never gets out because people like him don't want it to be voted on the floor of the Senate in that case, but there's a duplicate bill in the Assembly. So we need to tell Tom O'Mara and Chris Friend that we want that bill passed and become law so that we, the people, will be protected from contamination. The last thing I want to say is in reference to something that our county executive, Tom Santulli, said in a February 16th guest view in the Star Gazette. Chemung County Landfill does not accept waste from fracking operations. The landfill accepts drill cuttings, which have nothing to do with fracking. Folks, you don't have to be an engineer or a geologist to understand that when you drill down vertically, the drill cuttings that come back up are fairly benign. But when you reach the Marcellus Shale Formation, which by definition, which by composition includes the radioactive materials and heavy metals, and you turn 90 degrees and start going through the formation, all those drill cuttings that come back up contain what was in the Marcellus Shale, which includes radiation and heavy
You
metals.
just 5 minutes, ma'am.
Okay.
So you can wrap it up, please.
Yes, I'll make one closing sentence. I used to teach at Monroe Community College, and on the first day of class, I taught the students, don't believe everything you read or see on TV. Find out if it's opinion or documented fact. And I hope you legislators will do that before you make your decision on this important subject. Thank you.
Raymond Stiefel. Though I currently live in Wayne County, I have family roots in Big Flats and the Sealy Creek area, and I have relatives in Big Flats. I'm concerned about their well-being, so I'm here to speak for that. So you can find out I am speaking in opposition to the proposed expansion of the Chemung County landfill. The decision that you will be making, hopefully your minds are still open and eager to hear other sides and other concerns, will affect generations to come. And we certainly hope that you'll make your decision based on credible information, rational insights, and not from information put out by the corporations that benefit financially from this technology. And I just want to touch on 2 points. One is that New York State has had a difficult history of environmental and financial difficulties, and you can even call them disasters. You're probably all familiar with the West Valley, which was up near Buffalo, and it was an attempt to reprocess nuclear waste from the nuclear industry. And the state accepted the waste, and it tried to reprocess it for a profit, found out it couldn't do it, and shut down the operation. And so the residue of these initial attempts to deal with the spent fuel assemblies and so on from the reactors, we're still dealing with it as taxpayers of New York State. And you've also heard of Love Canal, also in the Buffalo area, where the town of Niagara Falls and eventually the Hooker Chemical Company used a trench that was built in the late 1800s, early 1900s as a place to put waste and eventually toxic waste. And when the Hooker Chemical Company decided it could no longer deal with its waste in that way, it sold the land back to the state for $1 and thus got out of the responsibility. Now there are some lawsuits still pending for Occidental Petroleum and previously Hooker Chemical. But again, it's the taxpayers that pick up the waste and the expense of monitoring the waste over the years. And there's just, with Hooker Chemical, the experts said there's no problem. They didn't know enough. And how can we say now that we know enough about the hazards of the radioactive and other toxic materials that are potentially going to be sequestered in this landfill. So we have to take the long view. What's the history been? And it hasn't been a very illustrious history. It's been a difficult history of corporate responsibility. Why are truckloads of reportedly safe dirt coming up from Pennsylvania? Why are they bringing it up here? Isn't it just a way of sweeping it under the rug, of removing themselves from the responsibility of dealing with this stuff? Why would they go to the expense of bringing it to New York State if it's that benign? Why don't they use it in Pennsylvania? And then if Pennsylvania decides, well, yeah, this is a bad industry, we've committed to it, but it should stop. But they should be the ones that deal with the irresponsible sequestration of the drilling and fracking residue. And then I just want to say a word about the Casella waste management company that has been and will continue to bring these waste materials up from Pennsylvania. And they have, if you go online and look for Casella, you'll see there are several pages of lawsuits against this company. They are not a responsible company. They are trying to become what seems to be the largest waste management industry. They have hundreds of landfill areas, and I'm questioning, are they really the ones responsible for monitoring the radioactive content of this material? And we know that the gamma radiation can't be monitored outside of being very close to it. It doesn't penetrate. It doesn't get through the iron or the metal containers that's being shipped in. So it's really something that you have to study. There are many, many different kinds of radiation. You just can't say radiation is there or it's not there. There are many different kinds. It has to be monitored in many different ways. And it's the alpha radiation that we're most concerned about. One industry watchdog evaluated Casella's rapid expansion into the lucrative rural landfill business recently and stated, as Casella expands, taking over what were local public works services and transforming them into for-profit ventures by taking waste from all points in an interstate market, its environmental violations can be expected to increase. So Casella is really a company that you need to look into. Can they be trusted? Further, this person said the company's aggressive acquisition program, begun in 1994, today is funded by a 1999 sale of 5 million new stock issues. Casella, therefore, has everything on the line because its obligations far exceed its ability to pay, unless it's able to expand many of the roughly 150 waste facilities it has snatched up. These once local businesses will be reoriented to regional service areas and the interstate waste trade. The communities that host them will shoulder an increasingly unfair burden of the risks created by managing everyone else's garbage. And you really want Chemung County to be the next pawn in Casella's scheme to control the waste industry. Will your decision to allow the expansion of their dump site be yet another stepping stone in Casella's hegemonic vision? So please, I know that there are financial concerns, as many counties in the state have financial issues, but it's really not fair to balance the county's books on the backs of the citizens and compromising their health. Thank you.
My name is Jason Knapp. I live at 1826 County Road 60 in Wellman, and I'm speaking for RFPLC tonight. I hope that all of you legislators read the article in the Star Gazette last week concerning schools, and a lot of schools have not ever tested for radon, and that was a major article. I thought it was very interesting because it went on to talk about the dangers of radon, the problems that are involved in it, and listing a number of areas that, why it's important to test for it. Chemung County is one of the highest areas for radon migration in the state. We happen to live in an area that has a lot of radium, which is the root cause of production of radon. And this radon migrates up through the soil and gets in basements, school basements, house basements, and so forth. Many houses, many buildings in Chemung County have taken remedial actions to get rid of the radon and to reduce it. Radon is the second highest cause of lung cancer in the state after smoking. So it is a very real danger, and it's very prevalent in our county. My question to you, legislators, is how can you allow 50,000 tons over the last few years of Pennsylvania Marcellus drilling waste to come into Chemung County, and which has high levels of radium in it, and allow that excess radium to break down and form radon gas? And how can you, as legislators, allow the increase, which will probably result in at least 200,000 tons per year of Pennsylvania drilling waste, to come into Chemung County and add again to an already high radon level that we don't need any more of? This material coming in from Pennsylvania is not just dirt. It's radioactive dirt. The background radiation in Marcellus Shale is much higher, sometimes 1,000 times higher than the background that we experience right here. So you're allowing excess radiation to come into the county when it has not been studied. We don't know the long-term effects of the radiation in the landfill. And before that should be allowed, we need to do some more studies. We need to understand what the long-term effects are going to be. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the fifth row? Yes, sir, come on in.
My name is Frank Patterson. I reside in the town of Annette, Chemung County 6th Legislative District, represented by Mr. Brian Highland. Good evening, Mr. Highland. Chairman Dexter, Vice Chairman Patrick, Majority Leader Kubar, Minority Leader Bennett, Chemung County Legislators. I speak here tonight as President of People for a Healthy Environment Incorporated, a taxable New York State not-for-profit corporation. One of its five purposes is to assist communities, groups, and individuals whose land, air, water, health, and/or quality of life may be subject to degradation by resource extraction activities and/or the threat thereof. My purpose tonight is to submit a letter to the Chemung County Legislature, setting forth to the People for a Healthy Environment Incorporated, opposes the acceptance of Marcellus shale drill cuttings into the Chemung County landfill. This letter references citations to the United States Environmental Protection Agency, Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection, waste reporting, New York State generic environmental impact statements to the oil, gas, and solution mining regulatory program, and the proposed Chemung County landfill draft environmental impact statement, showing 1, Marcellus shale contains alpha, radionuclide, radium Re-226, and solubility in water. 2, objective evidence from New York State DEC test of 12 vertical Marcellus gas wells in New York State counties of Steuben, our western neighbor, Schuyler, our northern neighbor, and Schnagel, our easterly neighbor, creating radium Re-226 readings as high as 16,030 picocuries per liter, with an average of 6,549 picocuries per liter, which is 13 times more within the 5 picocuries per liter EPA maximum content level for drinking water. 3, 154,666 tons of Marcellus shale drill cuttings have been shipped from 6 PA counties to the Chemung County Landfill in calendar years 2011, 2012, and 2013. And 4, Marcellus drill cuttings are handled at the Chemung County Landfill as municipal solid waste, thus exposed to stormwater, which results in leachate, which is transported to Chemung County Sewer District, Lake Street, and Milton Street facilities for treatment and discharge into the Newtown Creek, Chemung River, and Susquehanna River watershed. In that the proposed Chemung County Landfill DEIS is silent regarding testing of and/or removal of radium RE-226 from this leachate, People for Health and Environment Incorporated is with the belief that accepting Marcellus drill cuttings into the landfill degrades our environment. Therefore, People for Health and Environment Incorporated respectfully request the Chemung County Legislature provide a written response to our submitted letter on report 30 May 2014, 45 days. Joint actions that Chemung County Legislature will take to 1, stop the acceptance of Marcellus shale drill cuttings into the Chemung County landfill. 2, remove all existing Marcellus shale drill cuttings received to date from the landfill and from Chemung County. 3, prohibit future Marcellus shale drill cuttings, including its byproducts such as, but not limited to, fracturing sand, flowback, produced water, liquid congealed or coagulated, resulting from hydraulic fracturing, etc. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight.
Anybody else in the 5th row? Back row, 6th? Anybody on, yes, come on, get down. Sir,
Yes.
could you please, just put those up here? We don't need them up there. Just- Yeah, we'll hand them out. Just put them up here. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Maura Stevens. I live in Tioga County in Spencer, where my community of Spencer Van crosses the border. And we're very close neighbors. I work a lot with people in Chemung County, and I spend a lot of time and money here. I just want to point out something that hasn't been mentioned yet. And it is, what do we think of ourselves? Do we think of ourselves as a trash dump? As people who are a resource colony, that it's okay for people to just dump their trash on us, especially heavy metal, toxic trash? I happen to know that quite a few people in this room have cancer or another very serious environmental disease. Living with such a disease, as many people in my family are doing right now, is a nightmare. The incidence of deadly, often incurable diseases will spike in this community. Do we think that little of ourselves, that we can become the dump for the rest of New York and Pennsylvania? Do we really think that little of ourselves and our families? There's no amount of money that can cure cancer or other deadly diseases, or bring back children who are killed because of these diseases. I speak as someone who knows this firsthand, and I don't like to see other people putting themselves and their community in such a situation. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else on this? Yes.
Good evening. My name is Jim Serra. I live on 21 Front Street, Bennett, New York. And I've lived there for over 30 years as my residence. And now all of a sudden, the village of Bennett decided that our street is no longer big enough to have a two-way street. They want to block it off and make a dead-end street out of it, which is going to lower my property value. And I have petitions here with people's signatures that doesn't want it, and they're going to try to, they want to take over the street from the county, and then the taxpayers of Annetton is gonna have to maintain the street, resurface it, do whatever, plow it, sand it, do whatever they have to do. The drainage system all needs rework, and being a small taxpaying community of Annetton, we can't afford it. And I went to the mayor and I went to the village board, and they claim that there's not a petition for this, and we've checked into it further, and they actually have a petition out saying that they're gonna close the street. So we request that when it comes up in the county, that it have to be researched, and hopefully it'll stay a two-way street. And I thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else on this side? Okay, we'll start down here on this side on the front row.
Good evening. My name is Ruth Young from Horseheads. On January 30th of this year, I wrote a Freedom of Information request to the county legislature concerning the following. The Chemung County All Hazards Mitigation Plan, which was approved January 2006, updated May 2012. At the time, I specifically wanted information in this plan about silica dust, pipelines, compressor stations, and railroad cars and trucks which go through the town of Horseheads carrying hydrocarbons and toxic chemicals. The village of Horseheads referred me to the county, and the town had no idea what it was. A letter from Karen Miner, Director of Public Information from the Office of the Executive of Chemung County, indicated that the county All Hazards Mitigation Plan was online at the Fire and Emergency Management homepage. It is, all 90 pages of it, all having to do with natural disasters such as floods, fires, windstorms, tornadoes, etc. Not one darn thing in that 90 pages about man-made disasters, such as train derailments, silica dust in the air, toxic waste leakage from industries such as dumps, trucks carrying frac fluids, users of fossil fuel for manufacturing, etc. Man-made problems needing mitigation never happen here in Happy Valley, right? Is that why our county is second from last in terms of good public health out of the 62 counties in New York State? Is there a connection here? Under FEMA regs, all municipalities are required to have all hazard mitigation plans identifying all potential hazards, whether natural or man-made. Chemical storage and/or transportation are all under this guideline. Hazard mitigation is any action taken to reduce the loss of life and property by lessening the impact of disasters, natural, technological, and man-made. It is considered the first of the 4 phases of emergency management: mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery. If a municipality operates or allows to be operated by a private corporation a landfill and foresees an imminent threat of radioactive materials and heavy metal toxic waste being dumped there, the potential for a man-made threat such as this should be articulated in their all hazards mitigation plan. It is not there. I read the whole darn thing. Does your insurance company don't know that it's not there? They will, I assure you. Did any of you know that it was not there? You should. Such a threat to human health and property might best be mitigated through the enactment of local law prohibiting the use of the landfill for these materials. It's simple. It's on your shoulders. The first rule in the law of holes is when you know you are in a hole. it is wise to quit digging. I have a couple of articles here, which I'm sorry I didn't get time to make copies of, and I ran out of it. One is the idea that the Medical Society of the State of New York just passed a resolution on radon at their statewide annual meeting, April 12th, in Tarrytown, New York. Now, I won't read it to you, but it's online, and I'll give it to you so you can pass it out. And also, I'd like to remind you that the country of Germany is making landfills a thing of the past. Germany imposed a ban on traditional garbage dumps, replacing them with one of the most advanced waste management systems in the world. In the 1970s, they had around 50,000 landfills. In Germany, with 83 million inhabitants, there are now less than 300 landfills. They have a different way of doing business. They do, honest to God, recycling. Maybe we should get a grip. It's probably pretty economically feasible.
Thank you. Anybody else in the front row?
Dr. Earl Robinson, you've heard me before, so I won't rehash anything. I'm going to mention that last week I went to the second annual Landfill Conference at Hobart and William Smith College in Geneva, where they had representatives from the towns which were associated with the largest landfill in New York State and the third largest landfill in New York State. The largest landfill in New York State is run by a private company out of Canada, and it's 2,100 acres. The third largest is run by Casella. The legislators that were at this meeting were talking about closing both of them. Both of them are going to be, their contracts are going to be up somewhere around 2025. And why would they want to close them when they're making all this money? Is because of the problems that they're having with smell, trucks, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they don't like to be known as we live in the town with the largest landfill in New York State. The town of Geneva has actually had garbage smells persist for weeks at a time sometimes because of the size of Casella's landfill there. Erie County legislature just passed a law banning the importation of any drilling waste into their county landfills or their county. We also learned that 60% of the garbage produced in Tompkins County is recycled. And their garbage collection operation is actually an independent agency which is not paid for by the county. It makes money off of the recycling, which pays for the entire pickup, distribution, transfer, et cetera, et cetera. And why did they do this? Because they found out it's cheaper than running their own landfill. Onondaga County, same thing, 60% of the garbage is recycled. And I also found out that Chemung County doesn't have an environmental committee to look at this sort of thing. So I guess you get all your information from Casella. He's your environmental committee. He tells you what you should do, how to do it, where the garbage should go, how to recycle, et cetera, et cetera. But it might behoove you to at least, look at this yourself. Obviously, I'm not in favor of any kind of expansion of the Chemung County landfill, especially since it's on top. We now know it's on top of the aquifer. The two largest aquifers in New York State follow the north of the Chemung River and come together right at the Chemung County landfill. Right there. I don't know if I can say any more, because then I'll be rehashing things.
Anyone else in the front row, come on down.
Hi, my name is Chelsea Raymond, and I live here in Elmira, New York. I am here today because I am a young homeowner here in Elmira, and I'm extremely concerned about what this is going to do to our community. The environmental, health, and property value risks that this poses to us are not fair to us as your constituents. How would this benefit us as a people? Because I haven't heard a single benefit that would come directly to us. I'm concerned about the health and welfare of my family and neighbors. Radiation is not a joke. It's not just dirt. I don't understand the arguments for it, and I haven't really heard any. And I haven't seen any scientific data to back up that it is safe. If there is some, I would love to see it, but I haven't seen it. And I don't have a lot to say. I just wanted to voice my concern, and I appreciate your time.
Anybody else in the front row? Second row? I know.
I'm here about your number 14-162.
Yes, please state your name and your address, please.
I have these things to pass out.
No, we don't pass them out. We come up here.
It's kind of like to have so they know what I'm talking about. Hi, I'm Reverend Candy Stevenson. I'm here about your thing you're going to vote on tonight, 14-162, resolution authorizing the sale of real property acquired by Chemung County through real property tax foreclosure. I'm here about my church at 1130 Lake Street. The wonderful judge who is now dead, named Peter Buckley, dismissed 2 attempted tax foreclosures on that property. I gave documents, which is in the packets there. And this past time, when we had Judge Hayden take Judge Buckley's place, Judge Hayden paid no attention to the fact that my ministries are totally tax exempt and the property is not supposed to be taxed, and he let it go to the tax foreclosure sale. I have now, on behalf of my ministries, filed an appeal with the appellate 3rd Division in Albany, and I have asked for a stay of Judge Hayden's order, and I have also asked for an extension of time, and these matters won't be heard until April the 21st, which is after you guys vote tonight. And I'm asking that you please withdraw this property from your letting it be acquired and being sold to the next people. My home was in the parsonage upstairs. The downstairs was the sanctuary area for the church. And I have documents there showing I have an eternal life use. That's something that is not like a regular person's life use. When a church has a life use of a property, it's eternal. And they can pass it on to the next church, to the next church, to the next church. Ad infinitum. It doesn't stop when a person dies. This is with that property. There are a lot of other things with that property. It was bought on behalf of my one, at that time, ministry called Church of the Chosen. After that, I had it with the life use, irrevocable, and then I gifted it to the nation of Israel. You're pretty soon going to have Passover tonight, I suppose. But No one in the county has taken time to actually grant this to be left off in the tax foreclosure. So I have no other alternative than to ask you wonderful legislatures, please remove that property, it's 1130 Lake Street, from your letting this thing go through tonight, 14-162. I had the number of the tax thing here. And actually, it's the exact same tax as Judge Buckley dismissed in his order the year before he died. They're the very same taxes. And I was trying to look for the tax number so that you would have it. It is 07040088.07-8-8, 1130 Lake Street, the Church of the Chosen, which was the ministry when I bought it. I used my life savings to buy the place. And why I happened to come back here is because I came from here. I got married. My husband was in Bradford County, Pennsylvania. Lovely place. They're fracking and drilling and toxic and poison, and you don't want that up here. Just to add that in with what you guys are talking about this tonight. And I got injured by an insecticide spray plane coming over the house and dropping insecticide on me. And the place now in that area is so toxic I can't stay. So I came back here, brought my church and my home and everything, and plopped it there at 1130 Lake Street, down by Pigeon Point. Not the greatest neighborhood, but I was willing to fight through whatever, usually a lot of dope dealers, that's what's there. So that's what I'm dealing with, willing to deal with it, but I need your help. Don't let me lose my home and my church. I'm 501c1a, totally tax exempt, mandatory. Not a 501c3, which a lot of other people's churches are. You don't have to be a 501c3 to be automatic, mandatory tax exempt. And that's what my ministries are. And just one other thing I'm going to say in regard to that landfill stuff.
Your time is up, ma'am, so finish.
Okay. Bible says, when the Lord comes back, He's coming to destroy those who are destroying the earth. You don't want to destroy your earth.
Anybody else in the second row? Second row? Third row?
Hi, my name is Margie Rogers. I live on Larchmont Road in Elmira, and I've lived in Elmira all of my life. I didn't realize that I was going to speak tonight until I got here and I saw that there was an opportunity to. So I'm not a public speaker, so forgive me. And I also have menopause, so if I can't finish my sentence. Anyway, you asked about who are you here representing? And I thought, I'm here representing Mother Earth and our beautiful area. And yes, admittedly, I am a earth-loving tree hugger, and I urge you to become one also. Our area is extraordinarily beautiful. People, I get to do a lot of traveling. And when I say I'm from New York, they think New York State. And this is beautiful. Please don't let them dump on us. It's not good. And I can't say, but I'm worried that Santulli says it's just dirt. How can it be just dirt? There's so many people that are against this. There's so many people, there's studies. Please don't listen to it's just dirt. If Elmira is going to have a rebirth, it's in your hands. And we are beautiful. You have a great community. We're a small area.
gorgeous, and I think that we need to do something good for our community instead of bringing fracking waste here. I think that's all I have to say, so thank you very much.
While this gentleman's walking down, is there anybody upstairs that wishes to speak? If you do, would you please make your way downstairs?
Good evening. I am Doug Cushon, a resident of Elmira in Chemung County. I'm going to talk about radioactive waste being accepted into our county. Information for my presentation comes from the work of Dr. Marvin Resnikoff, Gary Abraham Esquire, residents for the protection of Laumann and Chemung, and many hours of individual research on the subject. By the way, as Chelsea and Margie said, I am not either buying the claim that the drill cuttings received here are merely dirt, nor that the cuttings come only from the vertical section of drilled well. No one in this room is stupid. In 2010, Casella Newsney applied for a modification of the dump's permit to increase waste volume by 50%, from 120 to 180,000 tons per year. Waste generated right here in the county was diverted to facilities at other locations, this to open up more space for drill cuttings. Now drill cuttings take up only about a quarter of the dump's allowed vertical space as compared to regular garbage. This transition enables Casella Newsney to make 4 times more money on drill cuttings than they could from regular garbage. This doesn't appear to be a move based on community interest. And now they intend, with your support, to increase the capacity another 100+% or so more drill cuttings. Dr. Resnikoff states that Marcellus shale drill cuttings have an unusually high concentration of radium-226, which is water soluble, and that the fluids returned to the surface during the drilling process are also radioactive. Radium-226 in the Marcellus is about 25 times more radioactive than background radioactivity in the surface environment. Radium-226 is particularly hazardous because when inhaled or consumed by drinking, it concentrates in the bones and the soft tissues of the body, particularly bone marrow, and this type of human contamination is linked to bone cancer and leukemia, usually fatal. Casella Newsney has accepted dewatered, but still wet and often leaking loads of cuttings hauled from Pennsylvania drill sites, thus raising the issue of human exposure from road dust contaminated by leaking trucks, and the issue of relatively high concentration of radium-226 in the dump's waste mass, as well as in the leachate generated there. The leachate, by the way, is hauled to the Elmira Water Treatment Plant at Lake Street, where it undergoes a process referred to as treatment, and is then discharged directly into the Chemung River. Neither this water treatment facility nor any other can neutralize or remove radioactive waste from the leachate or other fluids, such as frac fluid. The Chemung County dump was built on a gravel pit in the 1960s. There were no enliners installed at that time, making the present facility vulnerable to leaks, and there was no siting study done as there would have been done today. The dump is located in an environmentally sensitive area, positioned directly over a primary aquifer, which exists at a depth of only 5 feet. And only a few hundred feet from the Chemung River. If Casella Newsney, with the support of county government, continues to accept radioactive Marcellus drilling waste, a containment failure at the landfill will have horrendous consequences. Do you want to gamble on whether there will be contaminant failure sometime in the future? Please do not gamble with our future. Leachate from the dump is sampled twice yearly by an independent lab. Results of the analysis of the first 4 rounds of testing were foiled by RFPLC in June of 2013. The results show that radium-226 concentrations in leachate holding pond, where the leachate is diluted by rainwater and other wastewater fluids, have not increased substantially. However, the concentrations in leachate collected directly from landfill, the landfill itself, has increased substantially over time. Radium levels reached 14.15 picocuries per liter in the June 2013 samples. In short, leachate generated by the dump is becoming more concentrated with radium and then, be expected to become more concentrated with the radium in the future as well. The first 2 years of sampling confirms this. So we, the people of Chemung County, do not want radioactive waste in our water, air, stream beds, soils, and fields. Once radioactive materials are in the environment, they stay in the environment for millennia. We expect you to put a stop to this absurdity. Stop the expansion of the Chemung County dump. The people of Chemung County feel that this is your duty to us. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Barb Cleveland. I look a little different than you would have seen me last. It's been a while since I've been here. I live in Lauman, not far from the landfill. And I am a member of Residents for the Preservation of Lauman and Chemung, just to remind everyone what RFPLC stands for. I have cancer. Our mailman, Clyde Button, he couldn't be here tonight because he died Friday from his cancer. And 2 other neighbors were too physically weak to be here, and they have cancer. We have different cancers, but the one thing we all have in common is the fact that we have lived most of our lives in Chemung County, which is known for a high incidence of cancers and other environmentally induced health problems. Landfills are not conducive to a healthy environment. Therefore, increasing the capacity of landfill only adds to the unhealthy burden which already exists here in Chemung County, as was pointed out earlier. I know money is the motivation for landfill expansion, not the health and welfare of our citizens, but keep in mind that increasing the population of unhealthy individuals in Chemung County is costly in many ways. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Dr. Krista Hayward, and I live in Pine City. Thank you for the opportunity to comment tonight. I hope I will be brief. I suspect that I'm one of the few people in this room who actually works with radioactivity. In my job as a scientific researcher, I use chromium-51 to study things that cells do. I use small amounts. I take extreme care in handling the material, and I worry about my personal exposure, and I think about what happens to our research waste. The half-life of chromium-51 is 27.8 days, and most radioactive tracers we use in our lab have a half-life of less than 1 year. The Environmental Protection Agency allows small amounts of radioactive waste to be discarded down the sink, and some does enter the water treatment system. I understand that Casella will do everything it can to handle radioactive waste as carefully as I do by following guidelines. But the sheer scale of radioactivity brought to the surface and potentially discarded in our landfills significantly increases the chance that we and our neighbors will be exposed to radiation. Let me repeat that. The sheer scale of radioactivity brought to the surface and potentially discarded in our landfill significantly increases the chances that we and our neighbors will be exposed to radiation. The Marcellus Shale contains radioactive isotopes uranium, thorium, and radium, and their half-lives are 4.1 billion years, 14 billion years, and 1,600 years, respectively. Although naturally occurring, we are normally protected from exposure because of their deep location beneath the Earth's surface. Bringing drill cuttings to the surface increases the likelihood that radioactive elements could enter our waterways and our food chain. Additionally, because the landfill will contain significant amounts of radioactivity, that land will be unable to be utilized for thousands of years. It's one thing to use our landfill for the collection of household waste and waste produced by our community. It's quite another to actively ship in waste from other communities, waste that's radioactive and that poses potential threats for generations to come. Raising revenue by collecting large amounts of radioactive waste is a short-sighted solution to some of our community's long-term problems. Collecting waste from the Marcellus Shale is not the answer, but creates new problems. We will fill our landfill, cap off the radioactivity, and be looking for a new site for our waste long before we've addressed the economic and fiscal issues that challenge this community. In a recent Southport Town Hall meeting, one of our council members said she considers how she would feel if policies affected her backyard. I hope you will consider how our neighbors in Chemung and Lauman will be affected by the expansion of the landfill, their property values, their streams, and their quality of life. Thank you for your time.
Anybody else in that row? The next row, come up.
My name is Gary McCaslin. I live in Corning, 8 Grandin Drive. I feel I'm called to speak here, even though we're not in this county. We are bound together by the Chemung River, which is much more powerful tie, I feel, than an artificial boundary between our two counties. I'm here representing my two beautiful granddaughters. My father was born in 1920. Grew up in the Depression, enlisted in the military in 1942, landed at D-Day, worked his way across Europe in a tank. We didn't agree on a lot politically. He was a career military man. But one of the things I remember that he taught me, he said, don't ever make a bet. He said, and if you do make a bet, just make sure you're absolutely sure you're going to win, and then only bet a nickel. And as a result of that, I've never purchased a lottery ticket. I thank him for that. My question for the legislators here today is, let's say that you have heard all the information that you need to expand the landfill. You've heard from the good doctor who just spoke here, beautiful words, scientifically grounded words. You've heard all the research from Susan Moulter, and from Doug Bouchon and Bediak, who spent all those hours over here in this room. And then you've heard from the environmental scientists of Casella. And you have to weigh all the information that you have. And my question for you tonight is, are you willing to make that bet? Are you willing to put a nickel on the table to say that you are sure that this is not going to harm the people who live in this community? Maybe not just us. I'm 65. My insurance company tells me I've got 20 more years. But my granddaughters, I think they're going to be around for a while. I would love them to live in this area and know the beauty of it. Two other comments. On August 8, 2005, George W. Bush signed the Energy Policy Act, which allowed a special exemption to the safe drinking water in order to permit hydraulic fracturing. To be clear, President Bush signed this act and opened a loophole for fracking to begin. Now, how can we not ask the questions? If everything is perfectly safe with hydraulic fracturing, that's from drilling down, moving horizontally, taking 1 million gallons of water for every single frac, not per drill hole, but for every time the water is fractured, the drill is fractured. 1 million gallons, at least 500,000 gallons, half of that amount comes back to the surface. If that's a completely safe process, why is it that Vice President Cheney led his task force, which government officials were not allowed to attend, to include an exception to the Clean Water Act for hydraulic fracturing? I think he did it because he's a gambler. He gambled that people would not be organized and would not protest. And if everything is perfectly safe, why did the people of Syracuse say no fracking in this area? Why did Mayor Bloomberg say no fracking in any area where water will lead into New York City? Is the water in those two communities any more precious than the water in the Chemung Valley? I've already mentioned for each well, for each frac, you need 1 million gallons of fresh water. And half of that comes back to the surface. In the movie, which I agree you should all see, Groundswell Rising, Dave Walczak over here is one of the local producers of that. I learned that it only takes 1 gallon of contaminated water to contaminate 1 billion gallons of fresh water that will not be usable. So I asked him, are you willing to bet a nickel on expansion of Casella Waste that is over an aquifer that provides fresh water for that area? Are you willing to gamble that? Thank you.
Anybody else in that row? Oh, thank you.
Chalet, Chemung County, a constituent of Mr. Boulard. I only have 2 questions to ask. First of all, if this is just dirt, why is Casella wanting to expand the landfill 4 times? My second question is, if Pennsylvania doesn't want this just dirt, why do we of Chemung County want this dirt? Please ask yourselves those 2 questions and do a lot of research, which is available in many places, has been documented many times, and which is why most of us are here tonight. Is it really just dirt? Thank you.
The next row back, anybody wish to speak?
At the source of the Chemung River. I'm here to represent the Chemung River and all the life forms around it. One quick thing I want to say, if it's just dirt, why are the people who want to get rid of this dirt willing to pay 4 times as much as other people who are just bringing dirt? I noticed the Chemung seal is a bald eagle. I was thrilled driving down here today. I saw 5 bald eagles on my way from Green County. I saw 3 in Schoharie County. Actually, I saw 6. I saw 1 in Chenango County. I saw 1 in Chemung County and 1 in Steuben County. These were bald eagles with their full white head feathers. I saw other birds that I thought could have been eagles, but they don't get their head feathers for 5 years. They live on fish. I don't know how many people here, I think a lot of people here, remember when there were no bald eagles. There was very, very few. When the DDTs had destroyed their eggshells. What is the radioactivity going to do to these eagles?
What is it going to do to their bones? Now I'm here more for the people, and I am, and I have, really my heart breaks for people who have gotten bone cancer or gotten sick from the radioactivity that's endemic in this society. But I'm also really concerned about the culture that we're destroying. How many of you are proud to have bald eagles on your doorways in your house as the symbol? We're destroying that symbol. How many people here realize that in another 60 years when your great-grandchild is sitting on your grandchild's knee and he's telling her about the bald eagles that used to be DDT, this almost destroyed them. This will destroy them, and it will destroy many, many animals. And we will be just left here with no companions. I don't want to live here without any critters. And that's about all I have to say. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Good evening. My name is Jack Osson. I'm here as a co-founder of the Coalition to Protect New York. Several of our members live within the environs of this area. My comments are going to be a little bit different. I want to talk a little bit more from a systemic systems analysis in terms of what I believe this legislature is enabling by taking an action to expand this landfill. I hesitated to become involved again in this issue because when addressing it in the past, it seemed that conservative principles of governance, which would surely trump obvious corporate greed, and the threats to good stewardship of our lands and water. I was wrong. Corporate greed and shoddy leadership allowed an increase in the yearly tonnage of gas-doing waste to come in. That decision sent a message to other communities with landfills that this was an acceptable endeavor. Go ahead, make money off the unregulated wastes of the fracking industry. Be an enabler like we are. I have little faith in this exercise to soothe the public opinion tonight. And while I believe the decision has already been made to proceed on the expansion, please consider the following. We've all probably seen those cute and very expensive propaganda advertisements on TV. You know, the one during the national news with the attractive woman walking across a pristine floor, touting how safe gas drilling is. It reminds me of how Genghis Khan may have negotiated with a town under sieges by his forces. He might have said, hey folks, you may have heard all sorts of things about my men's tendency to rape and pillage, but let me assure you that our talents of building communities, our job creation, and our dedication to clean living are the real deal. Not only that, but we will guarantee the town fathers large profits to bury our waste. We have a few bodies of the less fortunate among us, and under his breath among you. Please, let's stop pretending that this landfill expansion is good for anybody other than those in power and the bean counters for the 1%ers who own Casella and the oil and gas industry. Remember, these corporations' attorneys wrote the legislation in the 2005 U.S. Energy Policy Bill. A piece of that commonly called the Cheney-Haliburton loophole. That loophole exempted oil and gas waste from being considered hazardous waste. Please let me repeat that. That bill, the 2005 U.S. Energy Policy Bill, exempted oil and gas waste from being considered hazardous waste. It wasn't a matter of science, of how radioactive or chemically laden it was. It was a matter of what was best for people, or nor was it a matter of what was best for people and communities. No. It was a matter of what it would cost these corporations to do the right thing. Doesn't this slap you in the face? Like it does me? That this is not the way to protect ourselves, that we shouldn't listen to that pretender at the gate, that we have an obligation to say no, even when the pretender says we will suffer a loss of profit for our strapped economy. Isn't it then more than financial gain in the political corporate culture anymore? Have conservative voices chosen this idol of monetary return above all else? It increasingly appears that this is the case. Please show us that it isn't. I've been wrestling with the connections around all these gas drilling issues percolating in our communities today. The most overwhelming and imminently dangerous are the contributions made to global warming by gas drilling activities. Several studies have shown substantially large methane leaks throughout the natural gas production and transportation processes. Methane is between 42 and 100 times more damaging to the atmosphere than carbon dioxide. Methane is a well-known accelerant for global warming. For Chemung County elected officials to enable this industry to expand by taking larger and larger quantities of its waste is to perpetuate and accelerate the global warming of this planet. In November 2012, commentary in Nature by the financier and philanthropist Jeremy Grantham, addressed, by the way, a hedge manager, addressed global warming by urging scientists to be, quote, arrested if necessary, end quote. He said in whole, quote, "It is crucial that scientists take more career risks and sound a more realistic, more desperate note on the global warming problem. Younger scientists are obsessed by thoughts of tenure, so it's probably up to older, senior, and retired scientists to do the heavy lifting. Be arrested if necessary. This is not only the crisis of your lives, it is also the crisis of our species' existence. I implore you to be brave," end quote. I also implore you to be brave and to turn down this unwelcome, inexplicable expansion to 417,000 tons of waste per year. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Freda Lynn Black. I am a resident of the town of Chemung, and I live on Mallory Road in Chemung County. I want to thank everyone who's speaking about the science and the danger of the frack waste, and I want to say right at the outset that I hold all of those concerns as well. I am the Vice President of People for a Healthy Environment, but I'm here speaking as myself as a landowner, personally, for me. This landfill was intended to be a generational landfill to serve the residents of Chemung for municipal garbage. That's what it was at the outset. If used for local municipal waste only, this landfill could be expected to last for a century or more, perhaps two. As a property owner, I see a line item in my property tax bill for the landfill. That means I pay taxes for this landfill. Nevertheless, there is no garbage pickup out on my road, except for those people who choose to pay Casella directly, separate from their taxes, for a pickup. I have observed landfill issues in New York City, Eastern Pennsylvania, and Delaware. I've lived many places. In all of these places, municipalities have run out of landfill space and have fought over allowing exceptions to height limitations or the costs of shipping waste outside of their community, often across state borders, because they have nowhere else to put it. Or purchasing suitable land to build an additional landfill at great expense. By the way, all of these options at great expense. When my family purchased the property in Chemung in 1979, the Chemung County landfill was not visible from Route 17. That's how low it was. Now, the landfill appears from Route 17 to be at the same height as the ridges behind it. An expansion of the Chemung County landfill is being requested solely because Casella is filling up the landfill at an alarming rate. And their request to increase the allowable tonnage will only accelerate that process. And they're not filling it up with our municipal waste, of course, as many people have made the point. It's imported waste from Pennsylvania of very suspect contents. The end result of an expansion is that the residents of this community will no longer have a landfill in the near future. And then what are our taxes going to be if we have to start looking to buy land? My family moved up here from New York City, seeking clean air, pure water, and a healthy lifestyle. Both my parents died from complications related to cancer, and I am now a cancer survivor. And I want to personally thank all those people who have stepped up to share their stories. Leaving New York was not an escape from cancer. I refused a $222,000 signing bonus a number of years ago, offered by the gas company for them to explore for gas on my land. Simply because I feared the possibility of pollution of our land, not my land, our land, by fracking fluids, radiation, and whatever else would come with fracking. New York State has looked at Pennsylvania and still holds a moratorium on fracking while it weighs the danger to our health. But now this body, the legislature here, stands by while Casella Corporation profits, while citizens of Chemung and Loudoun are harmed. Not just harmed, murdered. much more experienced and much wiser people and much better informed people than I have spoken to the radioactivity and the other concerns. All I have to say today about Casella, and I have visited at the open house and I have asked questions and I have gotten to the point where questions stop being answered, like why is gamma radiation being checked for and not alpha? Oh, we don't know that. Corporations are to be expected to look to profit. That's the American way. They have to pay profits to their shareholders. But this is Chemung County, this is a Chemung County landfill, this is the Chemung County Legislature. We are not beholden to Casella. I call upon you to hear the voices of the residents and bring the sanity back to returning this landfill. Not just not expanding it, but banning fracking waste, banning imported wastes from over the border to Pennsylvania where people are dying every day as their water is being polluted, and give us back our landfill for its initial intended purpose. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Kate Bartholomew. I'm from Schuyler County, your neighbor to the north, county without a landfill, and one who we've been fortunate enough that you've allowed us to bring some of our solid waste up here. But now I'm also chair of our Schuyler County Environmental Management Council, and I feel the need to point out a few things about this planned expansion. I feel a little bit out of my league since some people here actually have scientific degrees. I'm just a science teacher, but I want you to realize that these cuttings are coming not just from the Marcellus Shale, but also in the process of drilling down to the Marcellus Shale. They're going through a lot of other layers, geologic layers, some shale, some not, some sandstone and so forth. But if they're going through any type of black shales by virtue of their composition are all radioactive. Not as radioactive as the Marcellus, but there's radioactivity in those cuttings and they're coming up as well. And it's not just dirt, it's also the drilling mud that's used to help keep the drill bit going. So there's all those chemicals and water and so forth in the cuttings that is being added to your landfill. So yes, and radium and thorium and so forth, they're not gamma producers, they're alpha emitters. So I don't care what high-tech radiation detector they have at the landfill, they're not going to find any gamma radiation because it's going to be alpha, and it's not going to go through the side of a truck because it wouldn't go through the paper on your table. It may appear as just dirt, but it's a very interesting kind of dirt. And since I want you to imagine, do you all take out trash to one degree, or somebody in your house takes out trash, right? And you stuff it into a garbage bag, nice. Well, and if you're putting more stuff into that garbage bag, eventually, no matter how strong and durable that garbage bag is, the steel, you might get it to leak, right? Well, those landfill liners, no matter how durable, however many mils they are, eventually they could spring a leak. And so eventually that leachate might leach into that primary aquifer right 5 feet below the landfill. And the more heavy
drill cuttings that you're putting on that landfill, the more likely that is to happen. And I don't care how high-tech that liner is, all I have to do is give you the example of those lovely Kong dog toys and my 16-month-old Tibetan Mastiff. Those Kong toys are supposedly indestructible. It took her all of approximately 15 minutes and the thing was in shreds. So indestructible is only as indestructible as the force you apply to it. So critical thinking skills is something we teach to our high school students every day. And it's something, unfortunately, they don't seem to be all that interested in learning until they have to. And that's usually when, they're faced with the fact that, wow, I didn't do my homework for this entire year. Why am I failing? And why am I not going to pass the class? Well, it's amazing. All those lovely, blanks in your grade book, that's why you didn't pass. So critical thinking is something we have to apply throughout our lives and to all sorts of different situations. And I would think that this is one time that it's very imperative that you apply critical thinking skills to all the evidence in front of you. Because it's not just the residents of Chemung and Lauman, it's the residents of everybody downstream and everybody, this generation, the next generation, and every generation to come. Thank you.
I'm Dale Stanton. I'm a resident of Elmira. I just want to speak on 17, coming off Old 17. It's not just dirt. You smell it as you're coming up Old 17. And if you still want that smell, after you made a bypass and spent all this extra money to make sure that we could be I-86, then I say you made a waste of, you made a waste. You wasted your money making a road up to get people to come up to upstate New York and then turn right around and put a waste treatment, an area where you can smell the stench of the cuttings as you come up. Those men are not always there holding on to the, I'm a volunteer fireman. I volunteered for 14 years at Horsehead's Volunteer Fire Department. And not all that water goes into that line. That water comes back towards you. And you're not standing there with those cuttings and trying to hold that back. That's coming in, and then it's going into your farmland, down the street, down the line. It's not all going up to the dump. It's coming back. That's all I got to say.
Is there anybody else that wishes to speak that has not had their 5 minutes? Some people in the back, way over. Anyone back? No? Last chance. Does anybody in this room wish to speak? If not, we will declare the public section closed. And at this time, we are going to take a short break, a 3-minute break. And we will resume right after. It will be at 8:40.